The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive timelines, members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The safe house smells like machine oil and recycled air, and the particular staleness of a place where people have been afraid for a long time. It is a converted agricultural outpost on a temperate moon, low ceilings, exposed ductwork, walls the color of old concrete. Blue light from holographic star maps pools on the far wall in shifting geometries that nobody is looking at. Outside, the cloud cover has been building for an hour. The green of the moon's canopy is barely visible through the reinforced viewport. Rain is coming, the kind that arrives without urgency and stays for days. Luke is at the worktable. He is not working. The components of his lightsaber sit arranged in front of him. The grip, the emitter, the kyber crystal that took him 3 weeks to find, and another 3 to attune. Green, his color. Not inherited, not borrowed. His. His hands rest on either side of the assembly and do not move. He has been sitting in this position for so long that the blue light from the star maps has shifted its angle across the table, tracing a slow arc he hasn't registered. Across the room, Leia is working. She is always working. He has come to understand this about her over the years, not as a quirk, but as a survival mechanism, as precise and deliberate as anything in her arsenal. When the grief threatens to close over her, she produces motion. Supply routes. Casualty assessments. The logistics of keeping 300 people alive in deep space. She has the particular posture of someone who has built the act of thinking 12 moves ahead into the physical architecture of her body. Shoulders slightly forward, one hand moving, the other still, her eyes tracking information faster than most people process it. She has not looked at him in the last hour. She doesn't know he has been watching. He has known for 3 weeks. He has been trying to find the words for 3 weeks, and what he has found instead is this: there are no words that make this easier. There is only the saying of it, and the not saying of it, and the weight differential between the two has become unsustainable. Every time she looks at him with her complete and uncomplicated trust, he feels it, like pressure on a bruise he can't locate. He says her name. Leia. She doesn't look up immediately. She finishes the notation she is making. Then she sets the datapad down. She turns in her chair and looks at him with the full attention she gives everything. Completely, Sit, he says. Not a preface. Not I need to tell you something. Just the word. Flat and without decoration. Because if he gives her a runway, she will find a way to postpone landing, and he has been allowing her that postponement for 3 weeks, and it has to stop. Something in his face tells her this is not logistics. She sits. She folds her hands in her lap. She waits with the particular stillness of someone who has survived enough bad news to know that fighting the delivery only extends the damage. Luke looks at the lightsaber components on the table. Then he looks at her. I know who my father is, he says. I've known since Bespin. And I should have told you the moment I knew. I'm sorry I didn't. Leia's political mind moves faster than her emotional one. He can see it happening, the calculation running before the impact arrives. Who, she says. One word. Not a question exactly. A coordinate request. He says the name. The room does not change. The blue light keeps moving on the star maps. The ventilation keeps its low hum. Nothing breaks, nothing falls. Leia goes very still. A different kind of stillness than her working stillness or her waiting stillness. Something behind her eyes, and he watches this happen. Watches it with the terrible attention of someone who has been dreading exactly this moment for 21 days. Something recalibrates. Like a navigational system that has just received a position correction so significant it has to rebuild its entire understanding of where it is. She asks him to say it again. He does. The second time, her face does something he does not have a name for. It is not disbelief. It is the opposite of disbelief. It is horrible, instantaneous recognition. As if a piece of information she has been carrying in the wrong category, misfiled somewhere in the vast archive of everything she has survived, lands without warning in the correct place. And everything rearranges around it. He keeps going. Because stopping now would be a cruelty, and he is done with cruelty by omission. There's more, he says. Through the Force, through meditation, through the resonance I feel when I'm near you, I've come to understand something else. He does not look away. I think you are my sister. He watches her receive them in sequence. Darth Vader, your father. Your father. And you, his daughter, the man who stood in that room and said nothing while Alderaan burned, is her father. The man who sent a machine into her cell is her father. The man whose machinery processed her lover's body into carbonite to test equipment is her father. He is her father. She gets up very quickly. She makes it to the corner of the room. Her shoulder meets the wall. She braces against it. Her body does what bodies do when the mind receives something it categorically cannot metabolize through ordinary channels. Luke stays at the table. He gives her the space to have this reaction without the additional weight of someone performing comfort at her. She does not need comfort. She needs a moment in which nobody is watching her with that particular expression. The one that is trying to help and cannot help, and knows it cannot help and keeps trying anyway. He looks at the lightsaber components. She straightens. She breathes in through her nose, out through her mouth. Once, she turns around. Her face has done the thing it does in command briefings when the casualty numbers are bad. It has found its floor and is operating from there. She is not recovered. She will not be recovered from this for a long time. But she is standing, and she is present, and for Leia Organa, these are not small things. She says, Ben Kenobi knew, not a question, an indictment aimed at a ghost. He knew, she says. That is what you are telling me. He knew, and he looked at me, on the Death Star, while Vader was on the other side of that door, and he looked at me and said nothing. Luke opens his mouth. Don't, she says. Don't explain it to me. Don't tell me what he was trying to protect. I know what he was protecting. I understand the operational logic. I understand why the children of Darth Vader are strategically safer when they don't know what they are. She picks up her datapad. She sets it down again. She is looking at the star maps on the far wall. Not at them, through them. Yoda sent you to train, she says. While I was left with no language for what I am, no tools, no understanding of why I felt what I felt when Alderaan, she stops. Something crosses her face. The expression of someone who has just, for the first time, been able to name a sound they have been hearing for 3 years without being able to locate its source. She sits back down. Slowly in the room, she says. On the Death Star. When they fired the weapon. I felt something. I didn't know what it was. I had no framework, no vocabulary, nothing. I thought it was shock. I thought it was the specific kind of shock that comes from watching something too large to comprehend happen in front of you. She is very quiet. It wasn't shock. Luke doesn't say anything. He waits. It was the Force, she says. Wasn't it? What I felt in that room. Yes, he says. She absorbs this. The green light outside the viewport dims as the clouds thicken. Then, something shifts in her posture. He has learned to read these shifts the way a meteorologist reads pressure changes, as early indicators of something significant incoming. The grief does not go away. It does not leave her face. But something moves underneath it, the part of Leia Organa that is, and has always been, 3 moves ahead. She looks at him directly. He'll come for you, she says. If you signal him, if you're visible enough in the Force, he'll come. You told me he's been looking for you. Yes, his obsession is with you. She is not asking. She is building something, assembling it piece by piece in the architecture of her political mind, and he can see the shape of it forming even before she names it. That obsession is a vector. It points somewhere. If we control where it points, if we control the ground, the timing, the variables, he doesn't arrive to find what he expects. Leia, no fleet, she says. No troops, just him. Isolated, in a location we choose. She is looking at the star maps now, actually looking at them. And when he gets there, he doesn't find just you. He watches her face. He is trying to read what is behind the strategy, what she is planning to do when she has Vader in front of her with nowhere to go, no armor of authority, no machinery of the Empire between him and her. What are you planning to say to him? He asks. She picks up her datapad. Outside, the rain has started. It arrives without urgency, the way she predicted, the way she predicts everything, quietly, and with the intention of staying. The truth, she says, the storage bay is empty in the way that only deliberately emptied rooms are, the ghost of equipment still present in the scuff marks on the floor, the anchor points in the walls where shelving used to live. A single power cell sits in the center of the floor, glowing faint amber. It is not a candle. It does not pretend to be a candle. It is a power cell, utilitarian and honest, and it throws just enough light to make the walls visible and the ceiling a suggestion. Luke has been here for 3 hours. His lightsaber sits on the floor in front of him, unlit. The green crystal inside it catches the amber light and holds it, so that the unlit weapon glows faintly, warmly, like something alive in a very small way. His hands rest on his knees. His eyes are open and looking at something that is not in this room. He has been still so long that the cold of the durasteel floor has worked through his clothing and into his joints. He does not adjust. The discomfort is useful, it keeps him present, keeps the boundary between meditation and sleep clear and maintained. He needs to be precise for this. He needs to be, for the first time in his life, completely visible. For years he has carried a compression in his force presence, a held-back quality, not concealment exactly, not the trained suppression of a Sith, but a natural hesitation, the instinct of someone who learned early that being seen clearly was dangerous. Kenobi taught him to be careful. Yoda refined that carefulness into something approaching structural habit. What he is about to do is the opposite of all of it. He pictures the binary sunset, Tatooine's twin suns bleeding into the horizon, the sky going colors that have no names. He pictures Yoda's swamp, the smell of it, green and thick, alive in ways Dagobah makes no effort to conceal. He pictures the green crystal on the floor in front of him, attunes to it, finds the harmonic. He pictures his father's voice on the gantry at Bespin, the words that rearranged everything he thought he knew about himself and the galaxy and the shape of the war he was fighting. He thinks the word deliberately, knowing what it costs, knowing what it opens. Father, he holds it in the Force the way you hold a lamp in a window. Not hidden, not compressed, fully present, fully lit, fully legible to anything with the sensitivity to read it. He thinks of his father and he lets that thought expand outward through the Force without limit or boundary, the way light expands from a source, indifferent to distance. He holds this for a long time. The power cell flickers once, steadies, deep in the executor. The meditation chamber is sealed and pressurized and silent in the way that only a machine-sustained environment can be. Not organic silence, but the specific hush of a system maintaining exactly the conditions required to keep a man alive. The sphere is closed around him. The mask is off. Anakin Skywalker's face exists in this space, and nowhere else in the galaxy. Scarred, pale from decades of filtered light. Eyes that have seen everything the Empire has built and chosen to see it as necessary and are now, in the pressurized dark, simply tired. There is nothing theatrical about this face. It does not perform. It is simply a man's face, and the man it belongs to is old in ways that have nothing to do with years. He is meditating when it arrives, not gradually. It arrives complete, a Force signature so unguarded, so fully extended and deliberately visible that the first thing his training tells him is impossible. No one with Jedi training opens themselves like this. It reads as recklessness, except that Vader has felt this signature in fragments for 3 years, in the aftermath of the Death Star, on the edges of engagements, and he knows, with the certainty of a man who has been searching for exactly this, that recklessness is not what this is. He sits with the signal, turns it over, examines it. His first response is suspicion. A Force sensitive with Jedi training does not simply open himself unless he intends to, which means Luke wants to be found. He applies pressure to this realization, looking for the fracture that reveals the deception beneath. It does not fracture. Because Luke doesn't trap. He has reviewed every engagement, every known action his son has taken since Yavin, and the pattern is consistent. Luke Skywalker confronts. He walks toward the thing most people walk away from. He stands in the center of the amphitheater. Vader can feel it, can feel the deliberateness of the location, the wide-open exposure of a position with no cover. And he waits. The boy is more Anakin than he knows. He thinks the word before he can stop it. Son, in 20 years, that word lives in a sealed compartment that he opens rarely, carefully, and always closes again before it can expand into something structurally compromising. He opens it now. He lets it sit in the pressurized dark with his uncovered face and the amber readings of the life support display. His son is calling him. His son has stopped running. After 3 years of silence and the careful distance of a hunted man preserving himself, Luke Skywalker has lit a lamp in a window and left it burning. He rises. He reaches for the mask. Admiral Piet takes the departure order on his personal command channel. Maintain current patrol pattern, Vader says. Do not alter heading. I will be conducting a personal reconnaissance. If I have not returned within 48 hours, the channel closes. Vader does not finish the sentence. Piet does not ask him to. This is the unspoken compact of long service aboard the Executor. Certain sentences do not require completion. He notes the departure in his private log. 3 decks above the secondary hangar. An officer watches the TIE Advanced departure signature on the secondary hangar feed. The burst transmission code they are now composing on a personal device is not Imperial standard. It is older than the Empire. Built by a man who understood, long before anyone called him Emperor, that the only way to hold absolute power is to see everything. The transmission takes 4 seconds to compose and 2 to send. The officer pockets the device and returns to their station. Vader programs the coordinates into the TIE Advanced's navigation system personally, using a private data source that has never touched the Executor's main computer. The destination, Thyrsus Minor. A dead world in the Outer Rim, off major hyperspace routes. No Imperial presence, no registered population. Ruins of something old. The dark side lingers there the way old smoke lingers in stone. Not strong, not active, just present. A memory of power, rather than power itself. He boards without crew, without escort. The cockpit fits him the way a cell fits an occupant, precisely without comfort, with no space for anything except the function the space was designed for. In the cockpit of a TIE Advanced, with no one to perform for, the performance pauses. He makes the jump. In the hyperspace transit, one word turns in the dark of the cockpit. Not Skywalker, not the boy. Not the language of mission reports or command briefings, or the 20 years of institutional distance he has maintained between himself and the fact of his son's existence. Just the word itself, in the part of his interior that belongs to no one else and has not been surrendered to the dark side's demands. Son, he turns it over in the dark like something he found in a ruin and cannot yet identify. Old, undamaged, belonging to a version of himself he has not inhabited for a very long time. In 20 years it is the closest thing to a prayer he has left. The stars streak past and he does not look at them. He is looking at something further out than the viewport can reach. The place in the Force where his son's signal still burns, steady and deliberate, and fully visible. Waiting, Thyrsus Minor has no welcome. The sky is pale gray-white from horizon to horizon, not overcast, not clouded, simply colorless, as if the atmosphere itself has given up on weather. The sun is a small cold disk that sits in the upper quarter of the sky and provides light without warmth. The way a lamp in an empty room provides light without comfort. There are no birds, no wind-carried seeds. Whatever lived here before the Separatists built their administrative complex on these foundations has long since made the reasonable decision to be somewhere else. The ruins are enormous. Columns that once reached 50 meters lie in sections across the ground like the bones of something too large to have existed, toppled in an order that suggests not explosion but slow, patient collapse over centuries. The stone is black-veined gray granite, the kind that holds cold as character rather than temperature. Carved reliefs cover what remains of the standing walls, figures of immense height. their features worn to suggestions by wind and time, performing acts that might be combat, or might be worship, or might be something that predates the distinction between the two. The carvings are Sith era. The darkness in the soil confirms it, not the active malevolence of a place where dark side power has been recently exercised, but a residue, an echo. The memory of fire in stone. The TIE Advanced settles in the shadow of a fallen arch so large it creates its own pocket of stillness in the low, consistent wind that moves through the ruins at all hours. Vader steps down onto the stone. He reads the ruins the way he reads every unfamiliar environment. Sightlines first, then choke points, elevation advantages, exit vectors. The amphitheater is 400 meters northeast. Elevated approaches from the east and north. A narrow passage between the two largest fallen columns, approximately 200 meters out. A section of intact gallery seating, 3 meters above the amphitheater floor, to the west. He reads all of this in the time it takes to take 3 steps, because reading terrain is the kind of knowledge that does not live in the mind, but in the body, installed there by decades of use. Then he finds the Force signature. It is not subtle. His sun is at the center of the amphitheater, still broadcasting, fully open, fully visible, the lamp still burning exactly as it was when Vader felt it from the executor. There is something almost reckless about it, something that, the more he examines it, resolves not as recklessness, but as complete, considered courage. Luke has made himself maximally visible in a place where visibility is maximally dangerous, and he is maintaining it, and the maintenance of it is a statement. Vader does not rush. He walks. Part of this is authority. Darth Vader does not move toward things. Things move toward him, and the architecture of his entire presence depends on the consistency of this principle. But there is something else underneath it. Something he examines and identifies honestly in the way the pressurized dark of the meditation chamber permits. He has waited 3 years for this. Something in him wants to stretch the approach, to hold the possibility of it a moment longer before the reality of it replaces the possibility. Because possibilities are perfect in a way that realities never manage to be. He walks through the ruins, the wind moves past him without disturbing him. His cape is still in it. His breathing, the mechanical rhythm that has been the only constant of his existence for 20 years, fills the silence between the broken columns, echoes faintly off the granite, returns to him slightly altered. The way all echoes return slightly altered, carrying information about the space they have traveled through. He passes under the toppled arch. He passes between 2 columns whose carved figures face each other across a gap they were never designed to occupy. The original structure that once connected them long since reduced to rubble underfoot. The dark side residue in the stone is faint here but consistent. The particular quality of a place that has held power and released it, and now holds only the memory of having held it. He is aware of it the way you are aware of old weather in your joints. Not attention, exactly, recognition. He enters the amphitheater. Luke stands in the center. He chose this position with the same deliberateness he brought to everything about today. The collapsed seating forms a rough bowl of rubble around the performance space. He is in the lowest point of this bowl, fully exposed. No angle from which he cannot be seen, no direction in which he could move quickly enough to matter if this went badly. He is wearing civilian clothes. Not his rebel uniform, but simple dark clothing that belongs to no institution and carries no rank. He made this choice 3 days ago when he and Leia planned the meeting. This is a personal conversation, and he has dressed for the conversation rather than the confrontation. He watches Vader come. He has not seen him since Bespin, since the gantry, since the hand, his father's hand, the saber that took it, the information that arrived with the pain, and rewrote everything. Looking at Vader across the amphitheater now is different from looking at him on the gantry. On the gantry he was shocked, then desperate, then falling. Now he is standing on solid ground with 3 weeks of preparation behind him and his lightsaber on his belt, and a sister positioned behind a fallen pillar to the east, and he looks at the figure in black armor walking toward him through the ruins and tries to see through the suit to the man. He mostly fails. The suit has become the man. This is part of the tragedy, and Luke knows it, and the knowing of it sits in his chest like the grief it is. Vader enters the clearing and stops at a distance calibrated by decades of command experience, close enough for conversation, far enough to read the full situation. His mask sweeps the amphitheater once, cataloging exit vectors. Old habits from a war that ended 19 years ago and apparently never left. He speaks first. "I have been expecting you, my son." The possessive lands exactly where it is aimed. My son. Asserting the connection, asserting ownership of the terms of this meeting, asserting that the initiative belongs to him because the biological fact belongs to him. Luke looks at him steadily. "No," he says. "I've been expecting you." Quiet, factual, he does not raise his voice to make the correction, and he does not soften it to spare Vader's authority. The invitation was Luke's. The coordinates were Luke's choice. The timing, the location, the terms of engagement, all of it was constructed by Luke and Leia in a converted safe house on a green moon while the rain came down. Vader speaks as if he has the initiative. Luke is returning it to its rightful location, precisely, without drama. Something in the helmet's angle shifts. Almost nothing. Almost imperceptible. Vader makes the case with the articulation of a man who has been constructing it for 3 years, turning it over in the pressurized dark of the meditation chamber. Refining it in the hyperspace transits between campaigns, testing it against every counter-argument his own formidable intelligence can generate. The Empire is structurally vulnerable. Its dependency on Palpatine's singular authority creates a succession crisis the moment that authority is removed. The Emperor is not immortal. 2 Skywalkers together, the most powerful Force lineage in recorded history, would not need to fight the Empire. They would need only to stand in front of it. Luke listens. He does not interrupt. He does not begin assembling counter-arguments. He gives Vader the full measure of the offer, because the offer deserves the full measure. Not because its terms are acceptable, but because the man making it deserves to be genuinely heard. He understands that the offer is not only strategy. Underneath the strategic language, underneath the accurate accounting of Palpatine's weaknesses and what 2 Skywalkers could accomplish, is something that does not belong to strategy at all. He has been alone for 20 years. Inside the armor, inside the title, inside the institutional architecture of the Empire's most feared instrument. And the idea of his son standing beside him, not coerced, not captured, not leveraged, but choosing, is the only image in 20 years that still carries warmth. Luke can feel it in the Force the way you feel heat before you see the source. He looks at his father. The sadness arrives without his permission, the way real emotions always arrive. Not when you summon them, but when the situation demands them. Not pity. Not contempt. Sadness. He is sad for the version of this conversation that might have existed if things had gone differently. He is sad for Anakin Skywalker standing in a dead man's armor offering the galaxy to a son who is about to hand him something much heavier and much harder to carry than a refusal. Vader finishes. The wind moves through the ruins. The gray-white sky sits above them without comment. Luke lets the silence hold for 1 beat. Then 2. Then he says, "I didn't come alone." Quietly, he does not look away from Vader when he says it. He watches his father go still, the particular stillness of a man whose tactical assessment has just been revised mid-operation. He watches the helmet turn, the slow, careful arc of it reading the ruins, the positions he catalogued on arrival and is now re-evaluating against new information. He watches Vader reach into the Force. He watches the moment the second presence registers. He cannot see his father's face. He will never be able to see his father's face in this moment, which is its own kind of loss. Because what is happening behind the mask right now, the first contact with a Force signature that carries a harmonic Anakin Skywalker has not felt in 19 years, is written nowhere visible. It lives only inside the suit, in the dark, in the part of the man that the mask was built to contain. He watches the recognition begin. It is not yet complete. It is not yet named. But the edge of it is already moving through Vader like the first tremor of something vast. And Luke watches it arrive, and he does not look away. Leia steps out from behind the fallen pillar to the east. She chose that position 3 days ago when they mapped the amphitheater from orbital scans, and she rejected 2 better tactical positions to take this one, a location directly in Vader's sightline from the moment he entered the clearing. Luke asked her about this choice once. Carefully, she told him, she wants him to see her face. She walks into the open space now, with the measured pace of someone who has calculated exactly how close is close enough, and stops at a distance that is neither threatening nor retreating. Her blaster is holstered. Her hands are at her sides. She is wearing her white, the color that is now so associated with her public identity, that wearing it here, in the ruins of a dead world, in front of the man who destroyed everything that identity was built on, carries the specific weight of a statement she has not needed to make in words. She stands in the gray light and looks at Darth Vader and does not look away. Vader's response is immediate. His helmet turns toward her and the dismissal arrives before anything else can. The reflex of a man who has spent 20 years categorizing everything in his field of awareness into threat or non-threat, asset or liability. "The Princess of Alderaan," he says. "You brought a hostage, my son." Interesting strategy. The reduction is total and efficient. She is a known quantity, captured rebel, former prisoner, leverage, not a person. A position. This wrong assessment lasts approximately 4 seconds. He reaches into the Force the way he has done 10,000 times, automatically, the habitual scan of a new presence. The instrument check of a pilot settling into an unfamiliar cockpit. He is not expecting anything unusual. He is confirming the baseline. He stops. The twin resonance is not a whisper. It is not an inference or a subtle impression that requires interpretive attention. It is the Force equivalent of looking at a perfect mirror and finding your own reflection already looking back. 2 signatures of identical origin, identical intensity, identical harmonic base. Resonating in a frequency he knows the way he knows his own breathing. Because he has known this frequency since before it was a frequency, since it was a person, since it was the woman who carried this warmth through the world, with such moral clarity that the Force moved slightly differently in her presence, as if even the living energy of the universe found something worth orienting toward in Padma Amidala. He has not felt this since she died. He did not allow himself to look for it. Twins. 1 word. Barely audible through the vocoder. Not a question. Darth Vader does not ask questions he does not already know the answer to. This is the word of a man who has received, without preparation or warning, the single largest piece of information he has encountered in 20 years. Delivered the way a diagnosis is delivered. Flat, stripped of performance, landed in the body before the mind can brace for it. He does not move. The next thoughts arrive the way terrible calculations always arrive, not as a single blow but in sequence, one after another, each one built on the foundation of the last, each one worse. He tortured her. Not abstractly, specifically, the Edo droid. The chemical agents that lower resistance. The calibrated pain. He authorized that procedure from the Devastator's bridge with the particular cold efficiency of a man processing a security problem, and the security problem was his daughter, and he did not feel it because he was sealed inside 20 years of dark side armor, and the twin bond does not penetrate that armor at long range, and he did not look closely enough, and she is standing in front of him right now, carrying the physical memory of what he ordered done to her body. He was in the room when Alderaan died. He stood in the conference room of the Death Star, and he said nothing. He watched Tarkin give the order, and he processed Leia's presence as a tactical element, her reaction as data, her distress as confirmation of target value. And he did not feel the twin bond screaming at him across the void, because he was not listening for it, and because the dark side does not listen for bonds. It listens for leverage. He put Han Solo in the carbonite in front of her. He used the man she loved as a testing instrument. He did it efficiently, and without particular malice, the absence of malice being somehow the worst part of it. The confirmation that she registered to him not as a person whose pain had weight, but as a context in which logistical problems were solved. He did all of this without knowing. Without feeling it. Without the Force telling him what it should have told him, what it would have told him if he had not spent 20 years constructing elaborate internal architecture, specifically designed to prevent the Force from telling him things he did not want to hear. The dark side's great gift, and its great crime. It seals the chambers so thoroughly that the sealed chambers stop being felt as sealed. He did not experience the absence of the twin bond as a loss. He did not experience it as anything. It simply was not there, and what is not there cannot be mourned. His daughter stood in front of him, and he looked at her and felt nothing that should have been everything. Leia watches him process this. She prepared for many versions of this moment across 3 weeks of planning with Luke in the safe house. She prepared for denial, the institutional reflex of a man whose entire identity depends on the rejection of personal accountability. She prepared for rage, which would have been the dark side responding to threat. She prepared for dismissal, which would have been the armor holding. She prepared, in her most honest moments of preparation, for an attack, the possibility that a cornered Sith Lord's first response to destabilization was violence, and the contingency plans she and Luke built around that possibility. She did not entirely prepare for this. There is no word for what she is watching. It is visible even through the mask, even through the vocoder, even through the black armor that has been specifically engineered to present an impenetrable surface to the world. Something is happening inside the suit that the suit cannot contain. She watches it happen, and she does not move, and she does not speak, and she does not offer anything, not comfort, not direction, not the relief of a question he could answer that would give him something to do with his hands. She allows him the full weight of it, because she has been carrying the full weight of everything he did for 3 years without relief or reduction, or anyone offering her a manageable version of it, and she is not going to make this easy for him now. The wind moves through the ruins. Vader's breathing fills the amphitheater, the mechanical rhythm. The sound that has been the auditory signature of the Empire's enforcement arm for 2 decades. She has heard this sound in her nightmares. She heard it in the corridor of the Tantive 4 when she was 19 years old, and the bodies of her crew were on the floor. She heard it through the walls of her cell on the Devastator. She heard it on the Death Star, closer and more real than it had any right to be, while she stood in restraints and bargained for a planet that was already being destroyed. She knows this sound better than she has ever wanted to know anything. She lets it fill the ruins, and does not flinch. Vader finds his voice. What comes through the vocoder is stripped of its usual authority, not by intention, but by the same mechanism that makes a man's voice change when he has received news his body is still processing. "The boy," he says. "Not my son this time, just the boy. He told you. 3 weeks ago," Leia says. "He should have told me sooner. And you came here." The beginning of a recalibration, the tactical intelligence reasserting itself around the wreckage of the last 30 seconds. "Knowing what I am. I came here," she says, "because of what you are." She takes 1 step forward. Measured. The step of someone entering a room rather than crossing a battlefield. "I have something to say to you," she says. Not loud. Not threatening. Entirely calm. The calm of someone who has been waiting since the moment she learned the truth, who has organized everything she knows, and everything she survived into the most precise sequence she can construct. It is the most frightening thing anyone has ever said to Darth Vader. Because Darth Vader has faced death across 40 years of warfare and found it manageable. He has faced betrayal, defeat, the systematic dismantling of everything he loved, and built an identity inside the wreckage that has held for 2 decades. He does not fear the things that can be countered with a lightsaber, or a fleet, or a command. He does not move. Luke stands with his hands at his sides. And Leia, daughter of Alderaan, daughter of Padme Amidala, daughter of the man standing in front of her in borrowed armor and a dead man's title, straightens her spine, sets her jaw, finds the floor she found on the Death Star when she was 19 and has been standing on ever since, and begins. She does not begin with Alderaan. That is the crescendo, not the opening. She has constructed this the way she constructs every argument she has ever made on a Senate floor or in a command briefing, from the specific to the devastating, from the documented to the undeniable, from the evidence that establishes credibility to the conclusion that destroys comfort. "There was a droid," she says. Her voice is level. Not cold, level. There is a distinction. Cold is a performance of distance. Level is what remains when you have processed something so completely that its capacity to break your voice has been exhausted. It floated, she says. That was the first thing. It didn't walk in. It floated through the door of my cell on the Devastator, and it was quiet, and it was patient, and it had no urgency at all. No schedule. No deadline. The machine that sent it had all the time in the galaxy, and the droid knew this, and I could feel it knowing this. Do you understand what that communicates? Before it does anything, before it comes within a meter of you, the patience of it tells you everything you need to know about the position you are in. Vader does not speak. His breathing fills the space between her words. It administers a chemical agent first, she continues. I know this now. I didn't know it then. I know now that it lowers mental resistance. That it creates a specific kind of vulnerability that the pain that follows can then exploit. At the time I experienced it as a feeling of wrongness. A betrayal of my own nervous system. The sense of my own defenses becoming unreliable, which is a particular kind of terror that has nothing to do with pain and everything to do with losing confidence in your own mind. She pauses. Not for effect. She pauses because she is being precise, and precision requires care. Then it begins in earnest, she says. I will not describe the specific mechanics of what it does. I will tell you two things. The first is that I gave them nothing true. I held. Not because I am fearless. I was 19 years old and I was more afraid than I have been before or since. I held because Alderaan was worth holding for, and the people the rebellion was trying to protect were worth holding for, and because if I broke I would have to live inside the knowledge that I broke. And that seemed worse than the alternative. She looks at him steadily. The second thing I will tell you is that the worst part was not the pain. She lets this land. The worst part was the patience. The way it circled. The way it communicated through its very existence that there was no scenario in which I was not here, in this cell, with this machine, for as long as the machine required. Pain has a threshold. The body has emergency systems, mercy systems, mechanisms for managing what cannot be endured. The patience of that machine was designed specifically to prevent those systems from activating. To keep me in the threshold, functional enough to answer questions, damaged enough to want to. That is what you authorized. That is the instrument you deployed against a 19-year-old girl in a cell on your ship. Vader's left hand moves slightly. A fraction. An involuntary thing. She registers it. She does not acknowledge it. She moves to the second count. When they brought me into the conference room on the Death Star, she says, I was still carrying the physical aftermath of what I just described. My hands were in restraints. I bargained. I gave them Dantooine, a lie constructed under duress, the only thing I had left that might save something. Tarkin listened to me bargain. He nodded. He gave every indication that the information I had provided at considerable personal cost would be considered. She stops, and then he ordered the demonstration anyway. The wind moves through the ruins. I want you to understand what I am telling you, Leia says. I am not telling you I watched a planet die. I am telling you I watched 2 billion people die. I am telling you that among those 2 billion people was Bail Organa, who raised me, who loved me, who built the rebellion in his home, and taught me what it was worth dying for, and never once, in my entire life, gave me any reason to doubt that I was his daughter. I am telling you that I watched him die. I am telling you I felt it. Something shifts in her posture. Not a loosening, a deepening. I understand now what I felt in that room, she says. I have been given the language for it in the last 3 weeks, and I want you to have the complete accounting. When Alderaan died, I felt the Force register 2 billion lives ending simultaneously. I did not know that was what I was feeling. I had no framework, no training, no one who had ever told me what I was or what I could feel through the Force. I experienced it as a pressure, a silence that was larger than silence, a sound without sound, a sudden weight of absence where something vast had been. She looks at him. I felt my planet die in the Force before the light reached my eyes. I felt Bail Organa die before the light reached my eyes. And I was standing in a room with you, and you said nothing, and I had no way to understand what was happening to me, and I was 19 years old. She gives him the names of 2 handmaidens, women who served her mother, who served her, who braided her hair when she was small, and argued with her about protocol when she was a senator and were in the palace on Alderaan when it burned. She gives him their names without explanation and without context, because names do not require context. Names are the conversion of the abstract into the irreducible specific. 2 billion is a number. Tra and Mara are people. And they are gone, and Darth Vader said nothing. He goes very still. She is not finished. I want to talk about the armor, she says. Her voice shifts registers, not harder, more precise. The precision of a surgeon or a scientist or a senator who has done the research and is now presenting the findings. People are afraid of you. The galaxy is afraid of you, specifically not of the Emperor. The Emperor is distant, abstract, a political fact that operates through institutions and intermediaries. You are immediate. You are the thing that walks through the door. The thing in the corridor. She pauses. I want to explain what you actually are, underneath the mythology. Vader does not move. The armor is prosthetics, she says. The breathing is a machine. The title is a fiction. There is no Sith order. There is only you and Palpatine. And Lord is something he gave you the way you give a dog a collar, because naming it gives him the authority to name it. She takes one step forward, measured and deliberate. You cannot choose when to breathe. You cannot eat without a tube. You cannot sleep without a system that manages the organic functions your body can no longer manage independently. You traded your body. You traded your agency. You traded your son, and your daughter, and your wife's memory, and the republic you swore to protect, and the order you were trained by, and everything you have ever claimed to value. She stops. She looks at him. And what you received in exchange is the privilege of following orders from a more powerful monster. The words land in the ruins and do not echo. The gray sky absorbs them. The broken columns hold them. You are not a Sith Lord, she says. You are a slave with a better title. Palpatine owns you. He has always owned you. Every terrible thing you have done, every planet, every death, every droid that floated into a cell at his direction, you did it because he told you to. And you have the armor and the voice and the red blade, and you have convinced yourself that is power. She takes the final step. It is not power. Power is what I have right now. Standing in front of you in these ruins, with no weapons drawn, and watching you take a step backward. He takes a step backward, involuntary, not theatrical, not a stumble, a mechanical response. The servos of the suit processing a psychic weight they were not designed to carry, the body doing what the mind has not authorized because the mind is no longer in command of this moment. Then the legs go. One knee first. The left. The servos in the joint failing under the redistributed weight. Then the other. He goes down onto the stone floor of the amphitheater in front of his daughter, and all the machinery of the most feared presence in the galaxy cannot hold him upright against the specific, forensic, documented weight of specific truth. He is on his knees. Leia looks at him. She expected to feel something when this moment arrived. She has been carrying this confrontation for 3 weeks of planning and 3 years of survival, and she expected that when it came, when she had finally said all of it, when the accounting was complete and the evidence was entered and the verdict was sitting in the ruins between them, she expected to feel something that resembled relief, or justice, or the specific satisfaction of a debt acknowledged by the party who owes it. She feels a terrible emptiness. Because Darth Vader on his knees in the ruins of a dead world is still not what Alderaan deserves. Alderaan deserves to still exist. The handmaidens she named deserve to be alive. Bail Organa deserves to be alive. 2 billion people deserve to be alive, and they are not. And the man responsible is on his knees in front of her, and the stone floor beneath him is cold and ancient and utterly indifferent to any of it. She stands in the silence. The wind moves through the ruins the way it always moves through these ruins. Low, consistent, without urgency, carrying nothing. The silence after Leia finishes is not empty. It has weight and texture and specific dimensions, the dimensions of everything she has said, still present in the air, the way the smell of an extinguished flame is still present, after the flame is gone. The gray sky sits above the ruins without comment. Vader is on his knees on the stone floor, and the mechanical rhythm of his breathing is the only sound. Luke has not moved. He stands slightly behind and to Leia's left, watching his father on the stone and feeling in the Force what the mask prevents him from seeing, the interior of a man whose internal architecture is undergoing something structural. Not collapse. Reconfiguration. The difference matters. Collapse is passive, a thing that happens to a structure when the load exceeds its tolerance. What is happening to Vader is active. He is processing. The dark side runs on suppression, on the sealing of chambers, the maintenance of internal pressure, and what Leia has done, methodically and without cruelty, is open every sealed chamber simultaneously. Vader rises. Slowly, not with the fluid authority of a man reclaiming command. Mechanically, the servos working against the weight of the suit and the additional weight of the last 20 minutes. He reaches his full height. He looks at Leia. Then he says, "You were right." Not quietly, not loudly, at the register of a man making a statement of fact about a factual matter. About all of it. Leia does not respond immediately. She is watching to see what shape this takes. She has heard capitulation used as a weapon before, men who agreed with everything she said in tones of perfect sincerity and meant none of it. She waits to see what this is. "I am not asking you to forgive me," Vader says. "I know what I am owed. I know what I am not owed." A pause. The breathing fills it. But I can make sure they do not win. Luke feels it before he sees it. The shift in the Force is not subtle, the arrival of multiple presences simultaneously, from distributed positions across the ruins, presences that have been there long enough to establish the particular suppression signature of trained concealment. A compression, the specific sensation of something holding its breath against discovery. Multiple of them. Distributed, his hand moves toward his belt. A fraction. Controlled, he meets Vader's mask. Vader is already still in a different way. The reconfiguration has stopped. Something older and more immediate has activated. The situational awareness of a man who has survived 40 years of warfare by reading threat before threat declares itself. He felt the signatures the moment Luke did. He knows exactly who these signatures belong to. He knew, when he departed the executor without authorization, that this was possible. He calculated the probability. He made his decision anyway. But his children are in this clearing. And the standing orders these agents carry are not arrest orders. "Don't move," Luke says quietly. To Leia, not to Vader. Leia's eyes have already moved to the perimeter. She has already identified 3 concealed positions from the subtle wrongness of the shadows at the North Passage. The East Gallery, the main entry arch. Her hand has moved to her blaster with the unhurried efficiency of someone who assessed the tactical geometry of this amphitheater 3 days ago, and has been maintaining that assessment continuously since she stepped out from behind the pillar. She draws the blaster and does not raise it. Yet, 6 figures emerge. They move from concealed positions with the coordinated precision of a unit executing a deployment they have rehearsed, until it operates below the level of conscious thought. 2 from the North Passage, 2 from the East Gallery, 2 securing the entry arch. Black armor, fully enclosed, visored helmets that register nothing. They carry electrostaffs, cortosis alloy, the tips designed to short-circuit a lightsaber blade on contact. The leader steps forward. By order of His Imperial Highness, the rebel fugitives are to be executed immediately. A pause that is not a pause for effect. Lord Vader. You are commanded to return to the executor at once. Your presence here is unauthorized. The efficiency of it is what makes it monstrous. Not malice. Not cruelty. Just the clean operational language of people who will kill 2 human beings and file a routine report. There is no anger in it, no ideological investment, no personal stake. They are instruments executing standing orders, and the standing orders are lethal. and the whole apparatus is so thoroughly normalized that the leader states the execution order in the same register he would use to confirm a supply manifest. Vader looks at the shadow guards. Luke watches him. He watches something happen in the suit that he cannot name precisely, but can feel in the Force, old and deep. The kind of thing that lives below the level of decision in the architecture of a person who has spent 20 years operating within a specific structure of authority. 20 years of yes, my master. 20 years of the chain of command as the organizing principle of every action. The body remembers this before the mind weighs it. The posture shifts, fractionally, almost imperceptibly, toward the exit vector the guards have indicated. The old obedience activating like a system coming online. Then Leia's voice fills the clearing. There it is. 2 words. Quiet. Directed at Vader with the precision of a targeting system. Not a taunt, an observation. The observation of someone who has been watching him very carefully and has just seen something she already knew was there, confirmed. She is showing him his own reflection in real time. The old obedience coming back online, and the showing of it is more destabilizing than any weapon she is carrying. The posture stops. Luke's green blade ignites. The snap hiss of it splits the silence of the amphitheater. The crack of energy, the crackling sustain, the specific sound of a lightsaber he built himself, attuned himself, that belongs to no inheritance and no tradition he did not choose. Green, his color. Not his father's color. The color of something built in the ruins. I've survived worse than 6 men in black armor, Leia says to the guards, matter of fact, without drama. She jerks her head toward Vader. I've survived him. She raises the blaster. Vader stands in the center of the amphitheater, between his children and 6 of the Emperor's instruments, and the old obedience is still present. The pull of it. The 20-year groove worn deep into the architecture of who he has been. The exit vector is still there. The guards have left it open for him specifically. He looks at Leia. She is not looking at him. She is tracking the guard on her left, her blaster up and level, her weight distributed across both feet with the stance of someone who has been in enough firefights to have stopped thinking about stance. She is completely present in the threat in front of her, and she is not, at this moment, performing for him or at him or with him in mind at all. She is just there. His daughter, in the ruins of a dead world, with a blaster and no cover and no indication whatsoever that she intends to be anywhere else. The old obedience makes its case one final time. He does not take the exit. His glove closes around the hilt of his saber. He did not choose to save them. That phrase, with its clean emotional architecture, does not fit what this is. Choosing to save someone implies the available alternative was acceptable. The available alternative was the exit vector and the executor in Palpatine's holographic face asking questions he would have to answer, and it was never, he understands now, actually available. For the first time in 20 years, he is simply stopping. Stopping obeying. The red blade ignites. The first electrostaff comes in fast and low. Luke's green blade drops to meet it, and the cortosis tip makes contact and the blade dies. A half-second of darkness. The crystal's connection to the Force, interrupted by the alloy the weapon was designed to exploit. In that half-second, Luke is already moving. He uses the disabled hilt as a club against the guard's forearm. A hard, precise strike that redirects the recovery arc, drops his weight, steps inside his reach where the electrostaff's length becomes a liability rather than an advantage, and reignites at close range. The blade returns. Green. His second guard comes from the flank, the staff horizontal. Luke reads the geometry and doesn't fight it. He steps into the angle, takes the ruins. A section of collapsed seating provides elevation to his right. He takes it in 2 quick steps, and the height differential changes everything. The guards were trained for this engagement on flat ground, and the ruins are not flat ground, and Luke has spent 3 weeks memorizing exactly where every stable surface in this amphitheater is located. He is good, fast, creative in the specific way that distinguishes trained instinct from learned technique, not applying solutions but generating them, in real time, from the terrain and the moment. Leia has been watching the guards since they emerged. She identified the gap at the neck where the helmet meets the pauldron, weakest point in a fully enclosed combat suit, within seconds of their appearance. She fires twice. The first shot confirms the geometry. The second drops the guard cleanly, the bolt finding the gap with the precision of someone who does not fire when she is not ready, and is always ready by the time she fires. One down. She moves immediately after firing. She relocates to a second fallen column 15 meters west, covering the approach from the entry arch. She fires again. Another guard drops at the edge of the arch. 2 down. The third guard on her approach adjusts. He has registered the shooting pattern. She is accurate, patient. She waits for the gap. He comes in without giving her the gap, keeping his pauldron toward her line of fire, using the angle of the collapsed column between them to deny her the next shot. He is good. He has thought about this. He gets through her suppressing fire. His hand closes around her blaster arm, a grip calibrated for maximum control, the grip of someone trained to disarm rather than damage. She is fast and she is strong, stronger than the armor reads her as being. And she uses that wrongness of expectation, a sharp downward rotation of her wrist that should break a lesser grip. His grip holds. He outmasses her by 40%, and the armor amplifies his leverage, and he pins her blaster arm against the column. She does not panic. She headbutts the visor with the crown of her skull, enough force to break his focal attention for a fraction of a second, brings her knee up, finds the joint at the inner knee where the armor panels overlap, and drives her boot heel into the gap as she twists. His grip loosens by 10%, not enough, but enough time for the red blade to arrive. It comes between them like a verdict, not swung. Positioned, placed in the space between Leia's body and the guard's armored chest, with the controlled precision of a man who has inserted a lightsaber blade into an exact location 10,000 times and knows to the millimeter where the edge is. The guard releases her arm. He reads the geometry, reads the red blade and the figure holding it, and the threat assessment he performs in the next 2 seconds produces a result that overrides his standing orders with something more immediate and more biological. Vader steps fully in front of Leia. This is the image, not the fight that precedes it, not the tactical sequence that enables it. The image itself, its specific visual fact, Darth Vader in black armor, standing between his daughter and the remaining guards, his body between her and the threat. This has never happened before. In 20 years of deployment, Darth Vader has never used his body as a shield for another person. He advances. He is always advancing. The architecture of what he is requires forward motion toward the threat, not the planting of himself between the threat and something behind him. He plants himself. 2 bolts from the north approach. The first catches his cape, which absorbs it. The second hits his left pauldron and cracks something in the internal actuator housing. A warning registers. He files it as manageable and does not step back. The third bolt hits the chest plate. The primary armor unit takes the impact and does not breach. But the compression seal behind the plate, already aged and operating at tolerance limits, develops a fracture. Air pressure in the primary torso cavity drops by 4%. The suit begins compensating. He feels the compensation as a change in the breathing rhythm, the machine's adjustment more audible than usual, more obviously not his own. He does not step back. His right hand drives the red blade in an arc that covers Leia's entire left flank, a sweeping defensive pattern, the geometry designed to create a zone the guards cannot enter without losing a limb. His left hand reaches into the Force simultaneously, tracking Luke's position in the ruins above the seating section. He is performing the cognitive work of a general managing a 3-point engagement from the center position, tracking 2 other combatants, maintaining a defensive line, processing threat vectors from 4 remaining guards while the suit's damage system runs its calculations in the background. He fought like this for 10 years during the Clone Wars. Not as a Sith. As a general in the field holding the center while the engagement resolves, covering the people who need covering while the fight moves toward conclusion. Anakin Skywalker fought like this. Luke sees it. Between parrying the second guard staff and driving the third backward into a section of collapsed seating, he watches his father fight. Not with the advancing ferocity of the Sith Lord who cornered him on Bespin. He watches Vader take a bolt to the shoulder to prevent Leia from taking it to the chest. He watches his father's red blade sweep in a pattern that prioritizes her safety over his own tactical position. He watches a man who has spent 20 years as the most feared offensive weapon in the galaxy hold ground for someone else. Something in Luke understands. Not intellectually, below intellect. In the place where training and instinct and feeling in the Force all converge into a single recognition. He understands what his father might have been. What Anakin Skywalker was, before he stopped being Anakin Skywalker. What still remains inside the suit, beneath 20 years of everything that has been done to it and done by it. Yoda told him there was no hope. In the careful oblique way Yoda delivers verdicts he does not want to be argued with. Kenobi told him, more directly, that the man he knew was gone. Luke has been carrying this verdict for 3 years, testing it the way you test a rope bridge, cautiously, with most of your weight held back. What he is watching right now, in the ruins of an amphitheater on a dead world, is the rope bridge holding. He drives the third guard's staff into the stone floor, his elbow finds the helmet, and the guard goes down and stays down. He drops from the elevated seating and his blade takes the fourth guard across the chest at the armor seam. 4 down. Leia has recovered her blaster arm. She fires. 1 shot. The neck gap she identified 20 minutes ago, and the 5th guard drops at the perimeter. The 6th guard reads the engagement with the cold clarity of someone trained to survive when the operation fails. He withdraws, unhurried, back through the North Passage, into the ruins beyond the amphitheater. He will reach a communications relay within the hour. The fight ends. The clearing settles into the specific aftermath quiet of a place where 6 people were, and now 4 bodies are. Vader stands in the center. The red blade extinguishes. The suit's damage system continues its accounting. Left shoulder actuator seized at partial mobility. Chest plate compression seal fractured. Left leg servo flagging intermittent failure under load weight transfer. His breathing is harder than its usual mechanical rhythm. The machine is working to compensate. Leia looks at the cracked armor on Vader's left shoulder. The damage that is there because he was in front of her when the bolt arrived. Because he put himself in front of her and the bolt found him instead of her. Because Darth Vader stood between his daughter and blaster fire and did not step back. She looks at this for a long moment. She does not have a category for it yet. She built her categories for this day carefully over 3 weeks of planning and 3 years of survival, and none of them contain this specific data. She planned for the confrontation. She prepared for the accounting. She did not prepare for blaster damage on his pauldron that belongs to her. She files it under information. She does not let it move her. Not yet. The left leg fails first. 2 steps toward the center of the amphitheater, the suit compensating for the seized shoulder actuator by redistributing load to the lower assembly, which has been running its own damage calculations for the last 4 minutes, and the left leg servo fails under the weight transfer. Not dramatically. As a machine that has exceeded its operational parameters does, it simply stops performing the function it was designed to perform. Vader goes down onto one knee with the mechanical inevitability of a structure that has lost a load-bearing element. He does not make a sound. He stays on the knee. His right hand finds a section of broken stone column and uses it as an anchor. The breathing has changed register again, the chest plate fracture forcing the life support system into a compensation cycle that is audible to anyone close enough to hear the difference between the machine working correctly and the machine working hard. Luke is close enough. He moves toward his father immediately. Reflex. 3 years of knowing, and 3 weeks of preparation, and all of the careful architecture of what today was supposed to be dissolves in the single instant of watching his father's leg fail, and the instinct that remains is just. Close the distance. Leia's hand closes around his forearm. Her grip is firm. Certain, the grip of someone who has made a decision and is communicating it through contact rather than words. Her eyes are not on Luke. They are on Vader, reading the suit, the damage distribution, the geometry of a man on one knee with his hand on a stone anchor, assessing whether this is collapse or recalibration. She holds his arm. He stops. Vader looks up at them from the stone. Whatever is happening behind the mask is in the dark, where it always is. He speaks without preface. "You were right," he says. "About all of it." The words arrive with the register of a man making a statement of operational fact, not performing contrition, not constructing an apology toward a desired outcome. He says it because it is true, and because he has spent 20 years in very little contact with what is true, and what is true right now is specific and documented, and his daughter laid it out in a forensic sequence that has no error in it, and he knows it has no error, because he was there for all of it. The suit's compensation cycle shifts. A small sound, internal, mechanical, from somewhere in the chest assembly. "I am not asking you to forgive me," he says. "I know what I am owed." A pause, not rhetorical, but the pause of a man who has considered this fully and is reporting his conclusions. "I know what I am not owed." He reaches inside the armor. The compartment is in the left torso panel, behind a secondary plate, a modification logged as routine suit maintenance 18 months ago. Buried in a maintenance manifest that has been reviewed twice by Imperial technical staff without producing a question, he produces a data drive. Military grade. Black durasteel. Unmarked. The size of a human thumb. He holds it for a moment. Not dramatically. He is simply holding it before he relinquishes it, and in that moment, he is a man who has been carrying a very specific weight for a very long time, and is about to set it down. He places it on the stone floor. He slides it toward Luke. The scraping sound it makes crossing the granite is very loud in the silence of the ruins. The Emperor's personal movement schedule, he says. 6 months, every location, every date, every transit. His arrival at the second Death Star. The specific date. The orbital approach pattern. The window when his guard complement will be at its minimum. He pauses. Everything the Alliance needs to put him in a room where he can be killed. He says this the way a tactician delivers an intelligence summary. No drama. This is not a gift. He is not presenting it as a gift. Luke looks at the drive on the stone. He looks at his father. He picks it up. "The fleet," Vader says. "My departure from the Executor was tracked. An unauthorized exit during a shift change registers automatically in the communications bay. Fleet elements will arrive within the hour. You must be gone before that happens." He gives them the heading, precise, the navigational data that will thread them through the Executor's patrol grid without triggering its perimeter sensors. The voice of the command bridge, because it is the voice that carries information correctly, without distortion. Leia is already calculating. Laying the heading Vader has given them against what she knows of Imperial fleet deployment patterns. Determining whether it could be a trap. Whether the cost is acceptable against the probability of it being true. Her face gives him the answer. She files it under, credible. She turns toward the ship. Luke does not move yet. He stands in front of his father, on one knee on the stone of a dead world, suit cracked, leg failed, holding his position against the anchor point, and he has no words. He spent 3 weeks preparing for this meeting, and not one of the preparations involved words for this specific moment. The moment after everything has been said, and the data drive has crossed the stone floor, and there is nothing left to exchange, except the fact of them. Here, now, at the end of the first conversation they have ever had that was true. Vader looks at him from the stone. "Go," he says. "I will be here when you need me. Not I will come to you. Not I will join the Alliance. Not a promise of visibility or arrival, or the kind of presence that can be confirmed and entered into a command manifest. I will be here. He will continue to function inside the Empire, on the bridge of the Executor, at the Emperor's side when the Emperor requires it. The deference. The efficiency. The cold machinery of the dark side's most visible instrument. And behind the mask, in the sealed chamber where the word son lives, something that was not present 3 hours ago will be present now, has been present since the moment he stopped obeying." Luke nods. It is not enough. He knows it is not enough. He turns and walks toward the ship. Leia is at the ship's access ramp when he reaches her, already running the pre-flight sequence. She stops when Luke arrives. She turns back toward the amphitheater, toward the figure in black armor on the stone, still on one knee, still holding position against the anchor point. The gray light of Thyrsus Minor falls on the black armor and finds nothing to warm. "Leia." She stops. He watches her decide something. Not about leaving, something smaller and more specific. She walks back into the amphitheater. Not far. She stops at the edge of the cleared space, at the perimeter of the engagement zone, at a distance from Vader that is not close, and is not retreating. He looks at her from the stone. She looks at him. She asks him one thing. Did you know? Her voice is level. Not hard, level. The register she uses when she needs the answer to be accurate, rather than when she needs anything surrounding the answer to be managed. About us. About me. Even once, even for a moment, did you know what I was to you? Vader is still. No. One word. No qualification around it, no architecture of explanation or context built to make the word more manageable. Just the word, which is the complete answer to the complete question. Everything he did to her, he did without knowing what he was doing it to. Not an absolution. The mathematics of it might actually be worse. Not a monster who knew his daughter and chose to harm her anyway, but a man so thoroughly sealed inside his own damage that he could stand in front of his own child and feel nothing of what the Force was trying to tell him. She absorbs this. It is not forgiveness. It is a data point. She takes it and files it in the correct category with the same precision she brings to everything she files. And something in her, not the grief stays. The grief does not move. But something adjacent to the grief. Something that has been demanding an answer to this specific question since the moment she learned the truth. Goes quiet. She turns and walks back to the ship. She does not look back. The ship lifts off. Vader watches it from the stone. He watches the running lights clear the ruined arch, watches the ship angle away and push for altitude, watches it become a point of light, then a streak, then nothing. He is alone in the amphitheater with 4 dead guards in the wind. His personal comm registers the fleet's approach signature. 40 minutes. Enough time. If he begins now. He begins the self-repair sequence. His hand leaves the stone anchor. He finds the geometry of standing again, the suit running its protocols, the right leg compensating for the left, the shoulder actuator cycling through its limited remaining range of motion. He rises. He reaches for the technical kit in the suit's utility compartment and begins working on the left leg servo, methodically, the way a soldier repairs equipment in the field. The way Anakin Skywalker repaired equipment in 100 forward camps during the Clone Wars. He is Darth Vader again. He knows how to be Darth Vader. The breathing evens out. The posture returns. The mask is back, as it was always going to be back. But something behind the mask is different now. He kneels, deliberately, this time, not from failure, and works on the servo with the focused attention of someone who has made a decision and is no longer spending any interior resources on the question of whether the decision was correct. The decision was correct. The accounting is complete. What remains is the work. In the dead quiet of the ruins, his breathing is the only sound. For the first time in 20 years, it does not sound entirely like the machine's rhythm. It sounds like a man who has decided something. The data drive goes to cryptography within 20 minutes of their arrival. Alliance Command is a converted freighter running silent in deep space, no fixed position, no registered coordinates, moving on a rotation schedule known to fewer than a dozen people. The corridors are narrow and smell like recycled atmosphere and the metallic undertone of a ship that has been running its systems continuously for too long, without a proper maintenance cycle. Everything about this ship communicates the same thing. We are not here to be comfortable. We are here to continue existing. Mon Mothma is in the command bay when Luke and Leia arrive. She does not ask where they have been. She has been running the rebellion for long enough to know that certain information has a correct time to arrive, and that pressuring the arrival does not accelerate it. She reads their faces, both of them, in sequence. The careful assessment of a woman who has spent 30 years reading rooms and faces and the space between what people say and what they mean, and she waits. Leia puts the drive on the table. We have a source, she says, inside the Empire. The intelligence on that drive covers the Emperor's personal movement schedule for the next 6 months. His arrival at the second Death Star, the approach pattern, the window of reduced guard coverage. She pauses. My assessment is that it is genuine. Mon Mothma looks at the drive. Then at Leia. Where did this come from? A source within the Empire, Leia says. Highly credible. Motivated. Currently in position to provide further intelligence if needed. The pause that follows is the pause of a woman who understands that she has just been told everything she is going to be told, and is deciding whether to accept that boundary or press against it. She has worked with Leia Organa long enough to know which choice is more productive. And the source's reliability. Your personal assessment. Unimpeachable, Leia says, for reasons I am not going to explain. Mon Mothma picks up the drive. She turns it in her hands. She is reading the casing, the grade of the encryption seal, the manufacturing marks on the durasteel that indicate imperial military origin rather than commercial production. Get this to the cryptographic team, she says. Full authentication protocol, internal consistency, cross-reference against known imperial fleet deployments, everything. She looks at Leia. We will continue this conversation when I have verification. Leia nods. The equipment bay is 3 corridors aft of the command bay, a narrow room lined with storage lockers and the kind of miscellaneous technical hardware that accumulates in working ships over years of continuous operation. It smells like lubricant and old plastoid. The lighting is a single overhead panel, slightly yellowed with age. Leia closes the door behind her. She stands in the center of the room with the particular stillness she reserves for moments when there is no one to perform competence for. No command staff, no political calculation, no one who needs her to be the person who does not stop. She has been that person for so long that the stopping, when she allows it, feels almost physical, a change in the body's operating state. Something shifting from active to something that does not quite have a name, but lives adjacent to exhaustion without being exhaustion. She holds the image of the data drive in her mind. She no longer has the physical object, it is in cryptography now, being authenticated, being processed into the operational intelligence that will eventually become a fleet deployment, and a battle plan, and a moment in history that people will name later, with the confidence of people who were not there. She holds the image instead. This small object. She turns it in her mind the way she would turn it in her hands. The stone floor it crossed, the scraping sound it made, the hand that placed it there. She thinks about Alderaan. Bail Organa is still dead. The palace is still debris in the remains of an asteroid field. Tra and Mara are still gone. The specific weight of their absence has not changed, has not been modified by anything that happened today, has not been altered by blaster damage on a pauldron or one word delivered in direct answer to a direct question. She does not expect these things to have weight in the accounting of what Alderaan was and is not. She concludes something. Not a reconciliation. She does not have the architecture for a reconciliation and does not want it. Not forgiveness. She told him in the ruins what she owed him, and she owes him nothing. A conclusion that is smaller and more precise than either of those. Darth Vader is a monster, and Anakin Skywalker is not dead. And these two things are simultaneously true in the way that two simultaneously true things sometimes are, when the situation is complicated enough to contain them both without resolution. The data drive and cryptography is evidence of both. She stays in the equipment bay for 3 minutes. Then she puts the conclusion in the correct category, files it with the precision she brings to everything she files, and goes back to work. On the Executor, Vader returns before the fleet element does, entering the secondary hangar during the overlap between shift changes. A single loyal technician meets him at the landing struts, a man who has served on the Executor for 9 years and has never asked Vader a question that Vader did not invite. He performs the damage assessment with focused efficiency. The shoulder will show, the technician says. A visible stress fracture in the exterior plate that no cosmetic treatment will fully conceal. I engaged rebel operatives, Vader says. The damage is consistent with that engagement. Log it accordingly. The technician logs it accordingly. He will receive a transfer order within the week, a posting so unremarkable it will never generate a second look. He does not know this yet. Vader initiates the call himself. This is the first calculation. Palpatine must not be the one to open the channel. An emperor who opens a channel to an absent Lord Vader is an emperor conducting an inquiry. A Lord Vader who opens a channel to his emperor is a lieutenant making a routine report. The difference between these two framings is the entire operational security of what happens next. The projector throws blue light across the floor of the private comm chamber. The image that materializes is ancient and small, and radiates a force presence that travels across the light-year distance of the transmission, with the penetrating quality of someone who has spent 50 years refining their ability to read emotional states through precisely this medium. Palpatine can sense what a person is feeling through a holographic channel. Vader knows this. Every word of the next conversation is constructed in advance, built in the transit back to the executor the way he built battle plans in the Clone Wars, from the known variables, the known objectives, the known weaknesses of the opposition. Palpatine's weakness is specific. His certainty. Being almost never wrong for long enough produces a predictive confidence that can be exploited by anyone who understands exactly where the confidence lives. Lord Vader. The voice carries its usual quality, the ancient register of a man whose patience has been vindicated consistently enough that he wears it as a natural state. My agents report an incident on Thyrsus Minor. Your personal ship. A skirmish. Rebels, he does not ask a question, he presents facts, and observes. This is how Palpatine interrogates. He gives you what he knows and watches what you do with it. I tracked a force signature to the Outer Rim independently, Vader says. I did not want to alert the rebels by mobilizing fleet assets. When I arrived, I found 2 rebel operatives, Skywalker and the Organa girl. Your security detail arrived before I could complete my interrogation and compromise the engagement. The rebels used the confusion to escape. He pauses. I destroyed your shadow guards to prevent them from being captured and interrogated about Imperial assets. The blue image is still. Reading. And what did you learn? Palpatine says. Before the disruption. This is the question the entire conversation has been moving toward. The answer is the masterpiece of it, the piece that does the most work with the fewest moving parts. That the rebels are aware of the second Death Star, he says, and are moving against it. He pauses, the precise duration of a pause that communicates confirmation rather than calculation. Exactly as you planned, my master. Your trap is working precisely as you designed it. The silence on the channel is the silence of a man receiving confirmation of his own foresight. He hands Palpatine the one thing Palpatine cannot resist and cannot verify, his own omniscience, reflected back at him, accurate enough to be credible, framed in the language of the apprentice who has always known that his master sees further than anyone. Palpatine cannot distinguish whether Vader learned this from interrogating the twins on Thyrsus Minor or already possessed it from independent intelligence. The ambiguity is the armor. Inside the ambiguity the cover holds. You allowed them to escape, Palpatine says. Your shadow guards compromised a controlled interrogation, Vader says. The asset was lost when the engagement became kinetic. I have logged my recommendation that future surveillance operations of this sensitivity exclude assets not under my direct command. Another silence. Longer. Palpatine ends the call. In the private comm chamber, Vader stands in the dark after the channel closes. He has spent 20 years being this man's instrument. He used the deception, the strategic intelligence, the ability to build conversational architecture around an opponent's certainty, skills Palpatine built in him, tools Palpatine installed. The techniques of a master passed to an apprentice who was an apt student. He used all of them against the man who built them in him. The tools of subjugation became the tools of resistance. He enters the meditation chamber. The sphere closes around him. In the pressurized silence, the helmet comes off, and the face that exists only in this space and nowhere else looks at nothing in particular. He thinks of his daughter describing the droid floating into her cell, the patience of it, she said. The way the patience was the real weapon, the thing designed to communicate that there was no scenario in which you were not here, in this cell, with this machine. He thinks of having authorized that instrument. He thinks of the stone floor and the scraping sound the drive made crossing it. He thinks of his son's green blade in the ruins of the amphitheater, built by hand, attuned by hand, belonging to no inheritance and no tradition he did not choose. A Jedi who built his own weapon rather than inheriting it. He understands something about his son in this, in the ruins' aftermath, that he did not understand on the gantry at Bespin when he made his offer. He made the offer in the language of legacy. His son has never been interested in legacy. He is not at peace. He understands that peace is not available to him. The accounting of what he has done is too extensive, and too specific, and too documented for peace to be the correct framework. He has no illusions about this. What is available to him is something narrower and more functional. The correct enemy. For 20 years, Palpatine has been the organizing intelligence of everything he did. Every order, every deployment, every terrible calculation, the chain runs to Palpatine at its far end, and Vader has told himself for 20 years that the chain was a choice. It was never a choice. His daughter said it in the ruins with a precision he cannot improve on. He is a slave with a better title. He is, at last, at war with the right enemy. The sphere hums around him. The life support does its work. In the dark, Anakin Skywalker, buried inside the suit for 20 years, present in this chamber and nowhere else, breathes. The Battle of Endor begins at dawn on the forest moon, and does not wait for anyone to be ready. The Alliance fleet drops out of hyperspace on the coordinates Vader provided. The approach vector that threads the sensor gap in the Executor's perimeter grid, the specific orbital angle that reduces the Death Star's targeting coverage for the 11 minutes, it takes the fleet to establish engagement geometry. Mon Mothma's planners spent 3 weeks with the data drive's contents, cross-referencing, authenticating, building the operation around the intelligence the way you build a structure around load-bearing walls. Every calculation confirmed, every cross-reference held. The trap Palpatine designed runs into the fact that the rebels know about the trap. They have known for weeks. They planned around it the way Leia plans around everything, with the assumption that the trap is real. The shield generator is real, and the only variable that matters is whether you can move faster than the trap can close. The ground team moves on the shield generator. The Ewoks, who have decided this is their war in ways the Alliance did not anticipate and cannot fully explain, make choices on the forest floor that change the engagement geometry 3 separate times. The shield generator falls. The fleet engages in the chaos above the moon, Imperial ships that were positioned for a massacre finding instead an engagement that has been planned around their positioning, their trap turned into a map. The Death Star's reactor core becomes accessible. All of this happens, and it is significant, and it is the largest military engagement the Rebellion has ever executed. And the story does not dwell on it, because none of it is where the story ends. In the forest, Luke surrenders. The stormtroopers form their cordon. The moment is executed correctly, professionally, the way Imperial operations are executed when they are not improvised. And then Vader steps through the cordon, and the troopers step back, and it is just the two of them in the trees. In the green light of the forest moon, the sounds of the larger battle distant and irrelevant. Vader looks at his son. He says, quietly, not for the troopers, not for any record. Words he has not said in the 3 months since Thyrsus Minor. Words that have been waiting in the sealed chamber where Son lives. I have waited for this. Not a threat. Not the performance of Darth Vader asserting dominance over a captured rebel. The words of someone who has been patient for a long time, who has been an embedded asset for 3 months, who has continued to function as the Emperor's instrument while being something else entirely in the part of himself that is awake, and is now standing at the destination of that patience. Luke hears it correctly. I know, he says, equally quiet. I've been waiting too. The stormtroopers hear none of this, and would understand none of it if they did. The throne room is exactly as Luke has imagined it. High, dark, the viewports showing the battle above the moon in miniature, fleet engagements rendered small by distance, the Death Star's superstructure visible in sections through the outer hull geometry. The Emperor sits at the room's apex with the stillness of someone who has arrived first and arranged the furniture. He performs certainty because he has it. His force presence fills the throne room the way water fills a sealed container. Complete, pressurized, finding every available space. His contempt for Luke is genuine and total. The contempt of a man who has planned for this exact moment and found the reality of it gratifyingly consistent with his planning. He gestures Luke toward destruction with the air of a conductor whose orchestra has arrived exactly on cue. The Force lightning comes in arcs. Luke goes down. Vader stands at the perimeter of the engagement and watches his son on the floor of the throne room and does not move. Because the Emperor's back is not yet fully turned, and Palpatine's peripheral awareness in the Force is absolute, and the timing has to be exact. He has been calculating the timing since Thyrsus Minor, since the moment he slid the data drive across the stone floor and committed to the side he is actually fighting for. He waits. Palpatine steps toward Luke, fully committed to the destruction, the Force lightning intensifying, his attention concentrated entirely on the thing dying in front of him, the completion of a plan that has been in motion since before Luke Skywalker was born. His back turns. Vader moves. The red blade ignites and drives cleanly through Palpatine's back, precise, intentional. The act of a soldier who has decided which side of the war he is fighting on, and is executing that decision with the same clinical efficiency he has brought to every military operation in 40 years. Not a desperate act. Not an emotional crescendo. He made this choice in the ruins of a dead world when his daughter laid out the forensic accounting of everything he had done, and said, "You are a slave with a better title," and he took a step backward, and found the step backward unacceptable. This is the completion of that arc. Palpatine falls. His dying Force discharge comes in the last second. The electrical overload of a man who has weaponized his connection to the dark side so thoroughly that his death is itself a weapon. The current finds the suit's systems and moves through them with catastrophic efficiency. The chest plate's already fractured compression seal breaches completely. The left shoulder actuator fails again. The primary life support system enters emergency mode. The breathing apparatus struggles against a power interruption it was not designed to survive. Vader goes down. Not dramatically. He lands on the floor of the throne room and the suit's internal monitoring produces its accounting, and the accounting is not compatible with the word manageable. Luke is there when he lands. "Help me take this mask off." The vocoder carries it. Barely. The voice through the damaged system is uneven. The mechanical register failing in places. The man underneath it audible in the gaps. Luke kneels beside him. His hands find the releases at the helmet's base, the specific sequence, which he has never performed and somehow knows. The helmet comes free. Anakin Skywalker's face. Old, pale, scarred in ways that have nothing to do with battle and everything to do with what 20 years inside a suit does to skin that cannot breathe correctly and eyes that cannot see natural light. He looks older than Luke expected. He looks younger than the monster. His eyes find Luke's face and stay there. "I have to tell you something," Luke says. "I know," Anakin says. The voice without the vocoder is almost unrecognizable, smaller, rougher. The voice of a man rather than an instrument. "I know, Luke," he says his son's name. He has said it before, in command briefings, in reports, in the architecture of strategy and coercion. He has never said it like this. The way you say something you have been keeping carefully for a long time and are now finally able to set down in the right place. Luke stays beside him. Leia feels it at the shield generator. The moment Palpatine dies, the Force registers it. The removal of a presence so massive and so dark that its absence is itself an event. A pressure. Releasing. A window opening in a sealed room. Something that has been wrong with the Force for decades going. Not right, but less wrong. Then she feels Vader's vital signs dropping through the Force bond. The twin resonance, the harmonic she has been learning to read for 3 months, is dimming. She runs. Through the forest, through the battle's residue, smoke and scattered equipment in the aftermath of a fight the Ewoks won against all reasonable calculation. She makes choices about priorities in the space of seconds that a general should not make, and that a daughter cannot help but make. She enters the throne room and stops. Luke kneeling. The mask beside him on the floor. A man's face. Old, pale, eyes that have seen everything and are now seeing something for the last time. She crosses the room and kneels on the other side. She looks at his face. Anakin Skywalker. Not the myth. Not the armor. Not the 20-year performance of Darth Vader. Just the man. He looks at her now without the mask, and the looking is different. More. She takes his metal hand. The prosthetic. The hand that was at his side in the Death Star's conference room. The hand that was present for everything she documented in the ruins of Thyrsus Minor. She takes it. not tenderly. The way you hold something you do not want, but cannot put down. She is not forgiving him. She is here. She is seeing him. She is refusing to let him disappear in the dark of the throne room without being seen first by someone who knows exactly what he was and exactly what he did. "I don't forgive Darth Vader," she says. Her voice is level. "But you're not him anymore. You haven't been him since the ruins." She pauses. "Maybe you haven't been him for longer than that." He looks at her. Leia, just her name. He says it the way you say something precious that you are frightened of breaking, careful, deliberate, fully present in the single syllable of it. He has never spoken it to her before. Not as her father. Not knowing what she was to him. In all the years and all the corridors and all the terrible accountable history between them, he has never once said her name knowing it was his daughter's name. He says it once. It is enough. It is all he has time for. And it is enough. She holds his hand until the light goes out of his eyes. The Death Star's reactor core is building toward terminal cascades somewhere in the structure below them. The viewports show the battle above the moon beginning to resolve, Imperial ships breaking off, the fleet engagement shifting. The station's internal systems are failing in sequence. None of this intrudes. The writer does not rush past this moment, because the story has a countdown. The story has been a countdown since Chapter 1, since the safe house on the green moon, since the rain started outside the reinforced viewport, and this is where the countdown was always going. They have earned this moment. Luke and Leia walk out of the throne room together, side by side, through the corridor, toward the shuttle bay, toward the forest moon below them. Through the viewports behind them, the Death Star's reactor core is beginning its terminal cascade, pinpoints of light blooming in the deep structure, working their way outward through the station's geometry. Stars are visible through sections of outer hull damage. The viewports frame the destruction the way the ruins of Thyrsus Minor framed the silence, as a backdrop for something smaller and more permanent than destruction. Two people walking out of a burning thing together. They were twins, separated at birth to protect them from a monster, and raised in separate halves of a galaxy at war. And they found each other not through bloodline or destiny, but through a brother's guilt and a sister's refusal to be protected from the truth. The monster is dead. The man inside the monster is gone. And what is left is this: a green lightsaber and a blaster on the hip of a princess, walking out together through the smoke of the thing they brought down. History will call it a battle. History will call it a victory. But in the mathematics of the Force, it was something smaller and more permanent than that. It was a daughter, kneeling in the ruins, literal and otherwise, of everything her father had destroyed, and choosing not to look away. Darth Vader did not die redeemed. But Anakin Skywalker died known, and in the end, that is the only mercy either of them could afford. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.